You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
Hey there, everybody on Facebook Live. If you're seeing this, please like, share, spread it all around. We are live right now on Facebook only, running up the post here. 1 minute to go before we go live on Lanterns Media Network, on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, all that fun stuff. Today we're tackling the very critical issue of, is it time to officially declare Antifa a terrorist group? A former NYPD officer says yes. There are a number of stories out there about that, all stemming from the invasion of Tucker Carlson's home by, I would say violent, because they broke and entered, that's the definition of violence, Antifa protesters this past week. And also we're getting scattered reports, unconfirmed, scattered reports from local Arizona patriot groups that there was an altercation at a protest located in Tucson. We're going to go to that in just 30 seconds here when we go live on the network for our Veterans Day special. Is it time to consider Antifa a terrorist organization? Welcome, like, share, invite everybody along. Let's go live here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Here we go.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Oh, yes, indeed it does. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening and watching the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I am your host, Matt Holloway. Today is Sunday. It is the 11th of November in the year of our Lord 2018, and we are celebrating Veterans Day, honoring those who have signed that blank check with their very lives to serve the United States and to protect and defend the Constitution and all Americans. So we want to say a big thank you to all of our men and women in uniform, those serving, and those who have served, those who never came back. God bless you and keep you, lift his countenance upon you, and bring you peace, now and forevermore. Amen. So, waxing a bit religious there, like I do sometimes. Welcome, folks, to the HoloNet podcast. We have a lot to get into this week, and a lot of it is going to center on everybody's favorite group of pasty-skinned, astroturf, beanie-wearing, and 150-degree hipsters, Antifa, or Antifa, however you want to address it. If you want to throw the fake Germanic pronunciation on there, Antifa, like they enjoy doing in their little parade marches that mommy drops them off for, replete with Hot Pockets and Starbucks what it is, lattes, frappes, whatever. I'm pretty sure a frappe is like a style of... No, it's like a milkshake. Okay, that works. A frap. Yeah, frappuccino. I'll go with that. All right, folks, it's been a little while since I did a live show. Main reason for that, guilty, here, slap my hand. There we go. Matt didn't do any live shows for a couple of reasons. Big reason being, I have a 3-week-old little baby, and I haven't slept in a month. So, feel free to poke fun at how completely exhausted, disheveled, and otherwise crap lousy I look. I know right now on the Facebook Live, got a couple of people trickling in. Feel free to hop on there, facebook.com/HoloNet. We are live on Facebook right now. You can also follow us on the Twitters, at Matt D. Holloway, at the HoloNet. Find us on BitChute, YouTube, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Music, Google Play Music now, that's cool. Anywhere great podcasts are found, as always, on theholonet.com, theholonet.lanterns.buzz, and very recently, I am proud to say, on doaeshow.com. That is doaeshow.com, where you can find my written work. I have now begun a contributing relationship with our friends, brothers and sisters over at the Defenders of American Exceptionalism, and we wish them well. So, we're going to jump right into it. I have our lovely image posted up here. Veterans Day, remember all who served and all the absolute positive bad who are still serving. Make sure you give them a lot of love. I have a lot of family in the military. Did not serve myself personally. My late grandfather, Donald, served the United States Navy back in the 1940s, was later on a Port Authority police officer in New York, New Jersey. 2 of my cousins, they know who they are, served honorably. One was a sharpshooter for the U.S. Navy. She was sharpshooter. Could put one in the back of my head at like 100 yards by the time she was 19. That's kind of terrifying. And my other cousin was, I believe, a navigator on the Arleigh Burke during Operation Enduring Freedom. So I honor my veteran family today, and of course there are many that have been lost. I have great uncles and grandfather who served in the First World War, where President Trump was this past week. He was in France honoring World War I veterans and is taking a lot of heat because it looks like the game was called on account of rain. Yeah, it looks like the president declined to attend a honorary ceremony, despite many world leaders actually attending, because of rain. This has drawn a lot of harsh criticism for the president from both sides, and, I don't really know how to feel, what to think on this one. I'd have gone, a little bit of rain. I don't think we're getting the full story here. I think there might have been something else, because it's very, very atypical for the President of the United States to postpone or outright cancel an appearance based on a little bit of rain. There's always a rain plan for any one of these events, a secondary location where they can hold it in the event of inclement weather. So I think something bigger is going on here, and we don't have all the answers, but we need to watch carefully and not judge so quickly, I believe. I think there's more to the story than meets the eye, and we'll see what happens with that. So, as I promised, we're going to be talking about Antifa and why and if Antifa should be considered a terrorist organization. Now, I'm going to jump right out and I'm going to announce my bias right at the forefront. I believe there is a really solid basis for defining Antifa as a terrorist organization. And I will dig into that as we go through these stories that I've been able to pull up. And I want you to consider it from the perspective that a terrorist organization's goal is to use terror, to use fear, as a political tool to effect change. Now, whether that fear is founded, whether that fear has culminated in actual violence, which with Antifa it has, or if it has simply the earmarks or the threat of implied violence, and we'll get more into that with the Proud Boys later, you can seriously define Antifa as a terrorist organization, and honestly, it is the Proud Boys, I think, who are also appearing in news last couple of weeks, that fall in a gray area in between. And don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. It's not a plea that I'm copping. This is not an endorsement of Gavin McInnes's Proud Boys. I think, however, they fall in a gray area, and we're going to dig into that a little bit as well. But first, before we do all that, I want to jump across the pond a bit. Let me see here. I've got it. I know I have it. Here we go. Yeah, we're going to fly over the pond real fast.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
All right, geez.
All of you!
I mean, come on, give me a break. All right. Jumping over to the pond real quick. I know I normally do a whole segment on this, but I'm just going to throw a couple of minutes at it because there's not a lot of meat on the bone here, and really it's still a watch and wait situation. But according to Yahoo News, Elizabeth Piper of Reuters, in London, Prime Minister Theresa May was under growing pressure on Sunday to change her plan for Britain to leave the European Union to avoid a defeat in a parliamentary vote. With both Britain and the EU suggesting an agreement is close, Eurosceptic lawmakers are leading a leading member of the small Northern Irish party that props up her Conservative government made new threats to vote against the terms of a deal she's working on with Brussels. The vote in Parliament, most likely to come later this year, is gearing to be the biggest showdown in the lengthy negotiations to leave the EU, Britain's biggest shift in foreign policy in 40 years. Now, this is all centering on kind of the give-up slide to put a so-called backstop to prevent the return of a hard border between the British province of Northern Ireland and EU member Ireland, something that would come into force if a deal on future ties cannot guarantee the frictionless trade to keep it open. So, Theresa May's in trouble. Theresa May is in big trouble. Her government right now is held together by a rather fragile coalition. She does not have enough Conservative seats in Parliament to maintain a fully functioning government. So what she's had to do is she's had to bring in some Northern Ireland parties, some smaller seat holders in Parliament in order to form a coalition government. Now, coalition governments in the UK are not weird, and I think they're actually going to become the order of the day here in the United States pretty soon. But we have to bear careful attention to how this plays out. If Theresa May loses control of the Parliament, then tradition would dictate that the next largest party in the UK will be invited by the Queen to form a government. The next largest party is Labour. Okay? The Labour Party is not friendly to American interests at this time. They are not friendly to American interests under a Republican president. They never have been. Even under Tony Blair, they never will be. Because Tony Blair wound up hamstringing the Republican Party in his work with Bush in many ways. He went down with equal culpability on the WMD scandal. Were they or were they not? 10 Downing Street could have been much more helpful, but they were too busy trying to hold on to their own government. So we have to remember that a Labourite government is not our friend. So we do need to pay attention to whether or not Theresa May, for all of her faults, can maintain control of Parliament in the coming weeks. Because that will decide the state of Anglo-American relations for at least the next 3 years. All right? So stay tuned. Make sure you're keeping an eye over the pond for that. Also, we're going to go to the mainland in Europe. We typically, tend to go with British stories, occasionally German, but we're actually going to go to Amsterdam for this. Because in a World War I remembrance ceremony, actually, I'm sorry, it was a Kristallnacht remembrance ceremony. If you missed that day in history class, Kristallnacht was a day of violent uprising in pre-World War II Germany during the rise of the Nazi Party, when many Jewish establishments were smashed in the night with bricks and stones and were vandalized and torched and burned. Kristallnacht meaning the night of broken glass. Okay, so in Amsterdam, this is according to Arutz Shiva, the Israel National News, there was a BDS rally at a Nazi victim monument in Amsterdam, and it looks like my browser is just absolutely crapping the bed. But city officials called to explain after a BDS rally featuring a song about a suicide bomber in Tel Aviv took place at a memorial for Nazi victims. This is a pro-Palestinian group, the BDS, and they actually protested at a remembrance ceremony for the victims of Kristallnacht and the Holocaust in Amsterdam. So, as many people out there as want to defend the cause of the Palestinian the Palestinian people, quote unquote, they make it a little bit difficult when you're seeing directly anti-Semitic action here. Okay, so they said representatives of Netherlands' ruling party have asked the capital city's government to explain why it allows anti-Semitic and anti-Israel incitement at monuments for victims of Nazism. The Amsterdam City Council, Marianne Poot and Diederik Boomsema of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, I probably screwed that name up, and the Christian Democratic Appeal, respectively, filed 9 questions to the city government earlier this week in connection with Sunday's edition of an action promoting a boycott of Israel and that anti-Israeli activists staged at Dam Square Monument. That day, the action, which is usually limited to a handful of activists, saw new participants, mostly Arab men, but also Europeans and several women. Organizers played from the loudspeaker a song by rapper Ismo, which has featured anti-Semitic content in his songs. In a 2014 song, he said, quote, "I hate Jews more than Nazis." Titled Free Palestine, the lyrics celebrate the actions of a female suicide bomber who blows herself up in Tel Aviv. Later that day, one activist told JTA, journalists filming the event, "Cancer Jews, you really don't exist. You people don't exist. You're made up." Gee, that's an interesting thing to say to a people. You don't exist. Anyway, Amin Abu Rashid, a man identified by Israel and other Western intelligence agencies as a Hamas operative in the Netherlands, was present at the event alongside BDS activist Simone Vrouot. In addition to asking the city government considers anti-Semitic expressions appropriate in the country's main memorial for Nazi crimes, Poot and Boomsema asked, how does the city government view the presence of people collecting funds for groups considered a terrorist organization by the European Union? Some activists carried signs showing the Israeli flag with a swastika instead of the Star of David. Oh, that's nice. In the past, a variant of the same sign with a cockroach instead of the symbol was featured at the Dam Square protests. So, anti-Semitism, again, on the rise in Europe. We're now seeing it even in Amsterdam, which is supposedly like the chillest country on earth. But when we take a quick break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Antifa here in the United States and whether or not you feel, or I feel, or anybody feels, they need to be considered a terrorist organization in 2018 here in the United States. With that, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to hit that when we come back. Thanks for listening. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. All right, you're listening to HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. I am going to drop a little bit of wisdom on you today. We've made some big changes on the holonet.com, and you'll be able to find them right about down here in this region here, below all of our stories. And when you're reading a story on the holonet.com, boom, you've got our related products, which you can pick up. These are conservative tomes. These are the sources of our knowledge when it comes to the conservative movement here in the United States, and some of them are just good fun. You'll see here the Constitution of the State of Arizona. You can pick that up. Biopic on Ted Kennedy, Identity Crisis, the 2016 presidential campaign, Rules for Radicals Defeated, and Understanding the Arizona Constitution. Now, these are ads by Amazon. Full disclosure, when you purchase something off of Amazon.com on the HoloNet, that does go towards supporting our page, supporting our content. So please, make sure you check that out on the holonet.com. And now, here's the really cool part, our recommended reading list. Now, I posted this back on Facebook a while back, and here we have all the must-haves. The Constitution of the United States and the Federalist Papers, the Bible Promise Book, New World Translation of the Bible, and holy crap, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Jerry Doyle, Ann Coulter, Bill O'Reilly. There's a lot of Beck on here. I read a lot of his stuff. Dinesh D'Souza, Greg Gutfeld, and of course Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. If you want to pick up any of these recommended books, you can do that on the holonet.com/p/Matt's reading list, or just go to the holonet.com, click recommended reading. Finally, to take on a little tour here to the special offers section on the holonet.com. We have a free trial from Audible. You get 2 free audiobooks. You can start your free month of Amazon Prime Video. You can download free Kindle reading app and get $3 towards your ebooks, or start your free trial, your free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime. That's right, the HoloNet is now a member of the Amazon affiliate program. So please, if you want to check out any of those great services, go to holonet.com, click special offers, and get that today. That's on the holonet.com. Now back to the show.
Allied reinforcements had arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Oh yes, that is right. The new Millennial Conservative Resistance does indeed begin right here, right now with you. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Thanks for hanging in there through that little commercial for Amazon. If you haven't been on holonet.com yet, please check that out. Got some great books you can pick up there. Also, those special offers on Amazon.com really helps out the show. And if you stick around to the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Patreon and a new initiative that we're looking to accomplish with Patreon. I've got some really thrilling information about how we can bring the HoloNet radio to the airwaves. It has become more approachable than ever. It has become more real. We have a genuine opportunity to make it happen, and I'm excited. And I'd love for you to be a part of it. So we're going to grab that toward the end of the hour. Getting toward the bottom of the hour here, though, we're going to jump into this topic on Antifa, and we've got quite a few articles to go through, a little bit of audio here. But first, we're going to go to what started it all. Actually, no, I'm not going to go to the Tucker Carlson thing because it's been beaten to death. I actually have a more recent story. Antifa targets American flag in, I believe it's a pizza shop. So hang on just a second. I'm going to cue up that audio.
Appreciate it. And thank you, Joey, for supporting Maria. And I'm glad you raised all the money to do the new mural for the wall. I'll have to check it out if I come up there. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Laura. Thank you.
Vandals.
Always does this when I'm trying to play audio.
Ready for this? She doesn't like it. You've got to get in there.
Waiting for an ad right now. This is from the Ingram Angle on Fox.
Smile, honey.
And
First kid.
Of course,
Here
you
we
wind
go.
up with an ad
Second
play.
kid.
I mean, it's just garbage.
By their second
So
kid.
I know
Every
people
parent is
on
an expert
the
and more
video are
likely to
hearing
choose
this. Hang
loves
on.
than-
Sorry about that, guys. So we got 10 seconds here. We're going to go to some audio. Antifa has targeted an American flag mural in a New York town. I believe it's at a pizza's place. Here we go.
Learn and get loves.
Vandals in New Paltz, New York, target a pizza parlor for the crime of painting an American flag mural. Lauren spoke earlier with La Bella Pizza Bistro owner Maria Lasanti and Joey Garcia, a veteran who organized a parade to support the flag. Let's watch.
Before you even had this mural painted, I guess it was kind of an old wall. You wanted to spruce it up. You had some problems, I understand, with protesters. And for people who don't know where this is in New Paltz, New York, which is about 80 miles north of New York City. And it's a 14,000, 12,000 people in the town, small town. But what were the protesters' beef? What was their beef about the flag?
Well, they didn't want a flag. They thought that it meant a political position, and they were opposed.
Well, what political position is the flag other than this is the United States of America? Did you engage in any conversations with them?
No, I didn't. I really didn't interact with them at all. I just observed.
Well, how did they? Were they standing outside, Maria? Were they coming in and expressing themselves verbally to you, saying, "I'm not going to ever order one of your pizzas or grinders," or what?
I did have a few people come in and say they couldn't support my store any longer because they felt that I took a political position, so that they couldn't spend their money.
Wait a second. Okay.
Okay, we just lost the feed there because Fox News flipped out. But did you see that? If you were watching it live, there are people standing out in front, Antifa protesters standing out in front, looks like across the street from this pizza joint, because they painted an American flag mural on an old wall of their pizza shop. Are you freaking kidding me? This is brain damage, folks. It's like, hey, behind me, located here, if you're watching on Facebook, cool. If not, on YouTube, whatever, there's an American flag and there's an Arizona flag. Because I'm located in the state of Arizona, in the nation of the United States. Yeah, I fly the flag from my house. I know a lot of people who do. I know a lot of places that are decorated with American flags and with patriotic displays. Because this is the United States. So, in New Paltz, New York, according to the Antifa protesters, which I think on the average from that video looked like maybe 16 tops, if we're lucky. I mean, in that crowd, I'd be asking for ID. I'm just saying. Apparently that makes you a fascist. Something to oppose. As Antifa is anti-fascist, right? So, painting the American flag, Old Glory, on the side of a pizza shop is now a fascist oppressive move. Is it? Is that what we're to understand? We're in trouble, kids. We're in deep trouble. So on that, we're going to take one quick break here at the bottom of the hour, and then we're going to jump in. A former U.S. Attorney General is now recommending a RICO investigation. If you're not familiar with the RICO investigation, that is racketeering and organized crime. So I believe it's racketeering, conspiracy, and organized crime prosecution against Antifa. This coming from LifeZet Connor D. Wolf on Friday the 9th. We're going to hit that as soon as we get back from this quick break. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking around through that quick little break there. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Bottom of the hour. Today is Sunday, the 11th of November, 2018, year of our Lord. And former U.S. Attorney General is recommending a RICO investigation against Antifa. That is Michael Mukasey, speaking on the Laura Ingraham show, suggested opening this inquiry into the far-left group. Former U.S. Attorney General Michael Mukasey on Friday morning suggested opening a racketeering and corruption investigation against the far-left group known as Antifa after a series of violent demonstrations by its members. Quote, "It is a classic RICO operation, a series of crimes committed by a single organization," Mukasey told Laura Ingraham on the Laura Ingraham show. Quote, "I think some enterprising U.S. attorney ought to at least open a RICO investigation with respect to Antifa, and I suspect you could make a case." Mukasey was responding specifically to an incident this week in which Antifa protesters went to the private home of Fox News host Tucker Carlson and essentially terrorized his wife, who was inside at the time, and ultimately called the police. Ingraham asked why something like a RICO lawsuit can't be pursued against the group. RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is a federal law that allows leaders of a syndicate to be tried for crimes they ordered others to do or assisted them in doing. This was implemented to fight the mob in the 70s. The Antifa protesters outside Carlson's home threatened him and his family and damaged his property. The Fox News host was not home at the time. His wife was alone. She hid in the house, called the police as the angry crowd chanted right outside the door. They reportedly even cracked the front door. Antifa gained increased prominence following the election of President Donald Trump in 2016. They have also, stunningly, gained support among lawmakers and many progressives for their supposed mission to fight Nazis and the perceived rise of white supremacy in the United States. But they often target conservatives more generally. Gee, yeah, like the pizza place. Remember, guys. Remember. Terrorists. Okay. And their tactics are often violent, unruly, and out of bounds. Okay, so this is from LifeZat. LifeZat is definitely a conservative right-wing sheet. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted here, okay? This is a right-wing site. Doesn't make them wrong. Does make them biased, doesn't make them wrong. They go on to say, the UC Berkeley violent protests that gained national attention against the alt-right speaker Milo Yiannopoulos included Antifa members in 2017. The group has a history of shutting down speakers they disagree with, especially on college campuses, which have traditionally been a place to face challenging ideas and learn to properly debate. New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness linked the group to anarchist extremism in 2017. The Department of Homeland Security has considered classifying the group's activities as domestic terrorism. They often use the black bloc tactic, in which they wear a black mask to cover and conceal their faces. And here's the video of Tucker Carlson's house, which you've seen 50,000 times, and I'm not going to waste your time on. So that's LifeZet. And it goes on and on. We go to Breitbart. Former top cop in New York City, 9/11 top cop Bernard Kerik, says the FBI must classify Antifa as a domestic terrorist group. This is coming to us from Breitbart. Former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik. So this is not a nobody, okay? We have a former U.S. attorney, and now we have a former New York City Police Commissioner saying that Antifa is a domestic terror group and, is liable for prosecution under RICO, which handles organized crime, and is a domestic terror group, respectively. Either way, we have two prominent, seasoned law enforcement officials who are saying that this group is illegal, either under the terms of RICO or under the terms of domestic terrorism, which is more Patriot Act, okay? Either way, bad folks. All right? Carrick's comments were made during a discussion of left-wing activists threatening and intimidating Tucker Carlson's family. I think this Tucker Carlson thing is where Antifa has finally jumped the shark. Finally! Okay? It's not, punching Richard Spencer in the face. It's not starting what really was a street battle in Berkeley over Milo Yiannopoulos. It's not shutting down events in Phoenix. It's not taking a pepper ball to the by the police, because that was actually funny to watch. Speaking of which, during the Trump rally, did you notice the zero Antifa presence there? Putting that out there. Anyway, Arizona probably not the best place for them. But over and over and over again, we've seen these Antifa protests turn violent. Typically in Washington, D.C., New York, California, places where they can take hold. Not so much in Arizona and Texas, just saying. But Carrick said, in the most minimal definition of terrorism, it's the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in pursuit of political aims. Antifa is a domestic terrorist group. I strongly believe the FBI and the Department of Justice should classify them as such. Carrick recalled, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had to deal with the Weather Underground, which, if you don't know about the Weather Underground, go to theblaze.com, listen to some historical deep diving that Glenn Beck has done on them. Scary group. And by the way, a lot of these guys are in the DNC now. The Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, the Sam Melville, Jonathan Jackson Unit. There were a number of these anti-American leftist communist socialist groups that were doing exactly what Antifa is doing today. And those groups were doing more, which is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid this will escalate to much more severe violence. Back then there were bombings and assassinations of police officers. It really started to get out of hand until the FBI classified these groups as domestic terror groups and started to go after them as such. Carrick stated, I think the cities they operate in have to create local ordinances and laws that prevent them from being and remaining anonymous. They have a lot of courage when they have masks on and nobody can see who they are or identify them. They wouldn't be standing out there if they'd had the ability to remain anonymous. Completely agree. Full stop. Full stop. And here's something you're going to notice about people who are on the conservative right. I'm not going to say the alt-right, because don't agree with them. But on the conservative constitutionalist right, we don't wear masks, do we? We don't wear masks. Even the far-right talking heads and provocateurs like, say, Sargon of Akkad in the UK, even though he's more liberalist, traditional liberal. Yeah, he puts up the face mask, but he does a ton of videos without it. I've done a couple videos with, like, the drawn-in version of my face, the stylized version of my face, when I look like hell and you probably don't need to see me. But my face is plastered all over this podcast. Most of the videos actually have me in live action. So when you see groups like Patriot Movement USA, whether you like them or not, this is a prominent group here in Phoenix. They go out there and they are not wearing masks. They're standing there proudly holding the flag, and if you disagree with them, you disagree with them. If you like them, you like them. That's fantastic. I've gotten along with these people for a long time. I started to get to know them during the FBI protests down at FBI headquarters when they were calling for Hillary Clinton's indictment. This is like late 2016. And I got introduced to these people and have spoken to them and covered a lot of the stories they're present at, and they've been nothing but kind to me. I actually spoke at one of their events back in, I think, early 17. I spoke at an event that they were helping with. So, even if you can't condone, like, let's say the Proud Boys, you can't condone their actions, and I can understand where they're at. I can get there. But there's a problem with the Proud Boys, and I'm going to get into that. You have to respect the fact that they're not hiding their faces. You have to respect the fact that they're willing to suffer the consequences, to take the blowback from their community. Some people lose their jobs. Some people lose their social station. Some people, have issues intrapersonally. You lose friends. But they're willing to take it because it's something they believe in. Then you get these people from Antifa, these black bloc groups. Show your face. Show your face. Sunlight is the greatest antiseptic. Sunlight scatters the cockroaches. I mean, it is such a cleanser to bring light into the darkness. And when you're covering up your face, the darkness is comfortable, isn't it? The anonymity, it's comfortable. You wrap yourself in it like a warm, cozy blanket. It's cold and it's scary when you're out there alone and your face is bare and everybody can see who you are. So you don't get any respect from me when you're out there waving a flag, stamping your foot, and chanting and attacking people with a rag over your face. Okay? When you're standing your ground, non-violently, for the right reasons, with your face uncovered, and you're putting out there who you are and what you stand for, that I can get behind. Now, I mentioned the Proud Boys before and not being able to be fully on board with them. Here's where I think the Proud Boys and Gavin McInnes and the like of them get in trouble, okay? The Proud Boys are a group of self-avowed Western chauvinists who refuse to apologize for the Western way of life and for making the world great and everything that is. I'm with you all through there. You know, I believe that the Western world has created the 21st century and that, you know, we really shouldn't be apologetic for it. America is exceptional, as the defenders of American exceptionalism and I both tout. Where I think the Proud Boys get into trouble is when they go looking for a fight. And hear me out. They don't throw the first punch. They're very avowed on that, and I have not found an instance that I can record, that I can locate, that I can point to, where they threw the first punch, where they landed the first blow. Okay? But there's a difference between going out there peacefully and defending yourself and going out there looking for a fight. And I think that is the gray area that the Proud Boys live in, and I think that is where they are getting into trouble. And you know what? It's not a black and white world. There are shades of gray everywhere, all over the map. So I can neither, you know, embrace them nor condemn them. I really can't. Because I'm not going to stand here as a red-blooded American man, as a conservative, as a constitutionalist, as a believer in the right to bear arms, and the right to defend oneself against bodily harm and attack, and say that if somebody swings on you, you don't KTFO them, okay? By the way, I probably should have bleeped that, but KTFO, just Google it, okay? And I have three little boys, and I'm going to teach them the same thing. Hell, I'm going to teach my little girl it, too. I got 3 little boys and a little girl. I'm going to teach my children, I'm getting used to saying that now, not the boys, the kids. I'm going to teach my kids that you never throw the first punch, but you damn well better throw the last. You know, and when it comes down to a fight, you know, you don't walk in with arms down, face presented, you know, you defend yourself. But at the same time, you don't go looking for the fight. If you know this person wants to kick your butt, and you know they're going to be waiting for you by the flagpole, if you go looking for that fight, I mean, I really don't know, morally speaking, if I can get behind that. Now, if you're walking home and you get jumped, all hands on deck, man. Get in there and get good. You take him down. Never throw the first punch, always throw the last. And let the person know, you better drop me in one, because if I get up, you're in trouble. But I don't know if that's what the Proud Boys are doing in every instance. I can't see that, because I don't know enough. So can't embrace, but I also can't condemn. And what we're seeing right now is PayPal has kind of taken the parental stance of, I don't know who started it, but damn it, I'm ending it. PayPal, if you go to Gizmodo, PayPal has basically said, well, what if we ban both sides? Payment processing giant PayPal terminated accounts belonging to far-right Proud Boys organization and its founder, Vice Media co-founder Gavin McInnes. This is in the latest blow to Gavin McInnes, who's been has been no-platformed across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I mean, rough day for CRTV's Gavin McInnes, rough week. This week, in what seems to be a response to their involvement in a street brawl in New York and a well-documented history of violence elsewhere, but it has also banned a number of anti-fascist groups across the country, including Antifa Atlanta, Antifa Sacramento, the Anti-Fascist Network. The company has declined to comment on why, aside from citations of its terms of service and vague comparisons between Antifa and others it has banned, like far-right activist Tommy Robinson. As the Daily Beast noted, a statement from PayPal appeared to describe the anti-fascist groups in the same terms as the Proud Boys, citing provisions in its terms of service banning hate groups and the promotion of violence. In a statement to Gizmodo, PayPal Director of Corporate Communications Justin Higgs said the company would not discuss the accounts in question, though added the decision was based on extensive due diligence and analysis. However, he compared prior removals of Antifa accounts to the company's decision to ban Tommy Robinson, the infamous co-founder of the English Defense League and anti-Muslim activist. So, I can't be mad. I really can't be mad. This is a pretty clear-cut case of applying your standards in the closest you can to an even-handed manner. Because the Proud Boys promote violence in self-defense. They promote that, you go to where these events are, and if you're hit, you hit back. And they promote the self-defense. They promote getting into the fight and knocking around with these Antifa thugs. And okay. PayPal said, you know what? I don't know who started it. I'm finishing it. You're gone, and you're gone. And you know what? I think if other outlets took a page out of PayPal's book, God, I never thought I'd say this, I think we would see some pretty big changes in the online world in the left-right slant. I think if Facebook started pointing out the absolute deluge of left mainstream media fake news that was out there, alongside all the other crap that's put out there by, like, Alex Jones, I think we would be in a much more interesting, much more intellectually honest space. So really, I can't fault PayPal here. I really can't. Really can't. They are a company that has the right to deny service based on violation of their terms of service. That's what they've done. And you know what? They've done it pretty damn uniformly. Okay. No beef with that. Twitter, on the other hand, Facebook, Instagram, aka Facebook, Google through YouTube, you can take a lesson from PayPal. Now, speaking of PayPal and things that pay people, I'm going to talk to you in the last couple of minutes here about the HoloNet Patreon account. But before we do that, Washington Times, this is about 4 days old, they've expanded their hit list as political violence is escalating. This is according to S.A. Miller. He writes, when a mob of left-wing Antifa activists descended on Fox News personality Tucker Carlson's D.C. home, it signaled a new phase in the political violence and angry confrontations that are now targeting the news media. Political violence has been rising since 2012. According to the Global Terrorism Database, increasingly aggressive activists have pushed political confrontation to the limits since 2016, accosting Republican lawmakers and Trump administration officials, and now they're going after conservative journalists in their homes. Now, Antifa is short for anti-fascist. The group has anarchist leanings and targets anyone perceived as not in step with their far-left agenda. So I'm going to put this down in the comments, but, we really need to address something that I think a lot of my contemporaries and a lot of my, to be perfectly honest, a lot of channels that have much bigger reach than the HoloNet have been addressing, is that where do we go from here? We have an unsettled midterm election. We have Democrats taking control of the House pretty much without a doubt now. The Arizona election is still a toss-up. Florida looks like it's going to be broken off the rest of the United States and floated out to sea because of their frank inability to conduct any kind of meaningful election. But where does the violence go from here? Last week, the entire country gasped and kind of held their breath because Ruth Bader Ginsburg fell down and broke 3 ribs. And, pray for the woman, God be with her, for a speedy recovery and for getting back to work, because think about how bad it was, and The Blaze was talking about this, and Beck was talking about this last week. But think about how bad it was when Kavanaugh was getting in, and how absolutely unhinged the left became, and how increasingly desperate the left has been getting with every big political football. Like, howling and screaming into the sky, you know, when Trump was elected, and then every subsequent decision, you know, every confirmation hearing. You know, first you had your confirmation hearings for 2 Supreme Court justices. And now in the offing, we could have a third. Now you have the House being taken over by Democrats who have already said they're not going to seek impeachment. Nancy Pelosi is on record saying she's not going to seek impeachment right now. Okay? That's what they ran on, was impeaching the president. So what are they going to do to get the genie back in the bottle? Or are they actually going to have to put their money where their mouth is and drum up more baseless congressional investigations? You know, we have Jeff Sessions resigning and now being filled in with a temporary appointment by the president until a full nomination process can take place. What is the next escalation from Kavanaugh? As bad as it got under Kavanaugh. As bad as Antifa is getting now, like rushing Tucker Carlson's house. What's the next step? Are we really about to see widespread, politically driven violence in the United States like it was the 1960s again? Like it was the 1970s? Are we going to see literal bomb throwing instead of figurative bomb throwing? I don't know. But I do know that under every definition that you can assign for a domestic terror group, as Bernard Kerik stated, the former commissioner of New York City Police, they meet every definition. They check all the boxes. Can they be prosecuted under RICO? I don't know, probably. I'm not an attorney. If a U.S. attorney says so, then there's a good shot, because it was his job to prosecute RICO. But we need to consider, what does the next stage of escalation look like in the cold civil war of the United States? Because that's what we're in now. Make no mistake, these are the opening salvos of the cold civil war. The question is, when, how, and where does the cold civil war turn hot and truly become the Second American Civil War? Because I hope, and I pray every day, and I hope you join me in it, that we never see that final step. That we start to see some de-escalation and some sanity return. My lips to God's ears. Anyway, a couple minutes left to go here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I told you I wanted to get to this. This is Patreon.com. If you're looking on YouTube or on Facebook Live right now, Patreon.com/the HoloNet. And the reason why I wanted to ask you all here is the HoloNet has been on Patreon for about a year now. We've had some people who early on started donating, and that's been absolutely fantastic. It's been a big help and allowed us to help out Lanterns and kind of roll things up and take care of Lanterns Media Network, keep the lights on, pay for the Spreaker studio accounts that help to keep the podcast going. But I need to ask you for something else. And I hate coming to you with my hat in my hand with nothing to show for it. And that's not what's happening here. It's just I don't want it to look like that or sound like that. What I'm bringing to you now is the concept of the HoloNet Radio. We have an opportunity through a local Arizona AM station to get on the air, but it is a bring your own sponsor deal. So we have to either crowdfund to get on the air and then recoup the crowdfunding cost and then be able to pivot that toward advertising, or we need to find some sponsors. So there's a couple of different ways to go about it. And I'm going to scroll down through here, and we actually have a couple of different tiers. and you can actually support the HoloNet podcast for as little as $1 a day. Little as $1 a month, rather. And that unlocks exclusive content, joins the community of patrons, feed-only content, and you can connect with other patrons. There are, on our Facebook right now, over 460 people on there, almost 500 people. So if you use 500 as a round number, if everybody who followed the show could support for $1 a month, that's $500 a month. The entry package for us to get on the air is about $2,000 worth of sponsorship. So in 4 months, we can get on the air if everybody donated $1. And then you look at, if everybody donated $5, it goes up from there. $5 at 500 people, that's $2,500 a month. That's where we can really get some stuff going. And of course, there's other options on here. You have $10 a month. You can do $72 a month if you want to be a podcast sponsor. That gets you 30-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast. Major podcast sponsors, $125 a month. And that gets you a 60-second ad spot. Then you have radio segment sponsors, $500 a month, and $1,000 a month that are on there, and a couple of those, and we're basically set. But that's not what I'm looking for right now. What I'm looking for right now is for the average listener, the average person who enjoys the content, who is on the holonet.com, enjoys the written content. I'm looking for your assistance to take this dream that I've worked on for a year and a half now and make it a reality, and let's get the HoloNet on the air as the HoloNet Radio. And if you're able, if you can get onto the patreon.com/theholonet, link is on theholonet.com. It's right down here in the corner. Become a Patreon right down here. Become a patron on patreon.com, right below the Twitter feed. If you can do that, if you have the ability and if you have the will, then we could really make something of this. We can really make a go to bring the new millennial conservative resistance to a much wider market here in the greater Phoenix area, where there is fertile ground for this kind of movement to begin. And everybody who's been listening to this show so far, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done, just for tuning in, just for listening. God bless you. You've made this so worth it to me. And I never would have imagined I'd get like 500 people listening to a podcast on a consistent basis. I mean, that's incredible. But this is the next step. And the next step requires help. I can't do it on my own. So I'm asking you if you're able, and that's on patreon.com/theholonet. And on that note, thank you again to all of our veterans who served, all those still serving, and all those who have reported to the great commander in the sky. Good night. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix.